Hey everybody, welcome to the video. So we're going to go over the 6-game MLB DFS slate for today on Draftkings. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. It really helps me out. I really do appreciate that. I would say I'm going to be here all season long, but I was here all season long, but unfortunately this season is just about over. But we've gotten some pretty good baseball the past couple of days. My favorite team, the Indians, they hit a walk-off home run a couple of days ago, and J-Ram hit that walk-off in the bottom of the 10th. So that was pretty awesome. We clinched the playoff spot. And then Trevor Bauer last night, that was pretty fun to watch. If you guys were watching that game, if not, you can check him out on Twitter. But he was just yelling. I don't know who he was yelling at, but I guess just excited. He was just going crazy. He did the Conor McGregor strut at the very end when he was walking to the dugout. The guy's just super fun to watch. One of my favorite pitchers in all of baseball. It also helps that he's a former Indian, but so that's pretty exciting. And there's also some pretty good games as well. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the last week of regular season baseball. It's been pretty good, and I have been enjoying it, but I am looking forward to next year when we have a actual full MLB season. But yeah, before we continue, as though I already said that, but yeah, if you guys could leave a like, hit the subscribe button if you're new, and if you're gonna come back to the channel, might as well hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new videos. And if you don't follow me on social media, handles in the bottom left hand corner of your screen. And if you want some more content over on Patreon, always much appreciated. We got over 300 members, and you can hop into the Discord chat, and you get access to all the extra content that I put out each and every single day, or each and every single week, depending on the sport. But baseball's almost over, so you might as well just not sign up for baseball if you want to, and you can sign up for another sport if you're interested. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So I'd say we could dive into today's slate. Sorry that was kind of mumble jumbled at the beginning, but I got sidetracked talking about Trevor Bauer's game last night. But we'll start with pitching. We have Ian Anderson here all the way up at 8,800. I say all the way up, but he's the guy that's all the way up in this list that I have. I believe Lance Lynn and Walker Buehler are the only two pitchers that are more expensive today. Yeah, Lance Lynn's at 93 and Walker Buehler is at 10,000 coming off the IL. But I do like Ian Anderson here versus Miami. It's a pretty good spot, and he's actually been pretty solid so far this season. It's a limited sample size. He's only made 5 starts. But in those 5 starts, he's been at 25, 24, 9, 35, and 15 fantasy points. He's also racking up some strikeouts too. It's 6, 8, 4, but then 9 and 8. Pitch count's also been over 90 pitches in all of his starts besides one. And that was actually versus Miami, where only lasted 3 innings, which I guess isn't a great track record, but still, it's only 1 start, and I still think he'll be fine here. 6 strikeouts over in Vegas. The Marlins have a team total below 4. He's a pretty heavy favorite here. Looking at his overall numbers this season, it's actually pretty good at 32% K rate at 3.51 xFIP. Walk rate's at 13%, which I don't love. That's not great, but I'd assume it's going to go down if there was a larger sample size. Getting a lot of ground balls and only 0.34 home runs per 9 innings. And if you're looking at how the Marlins have done versus righties this season, 25% K rate, only a 118 team ISO, and just overall some pretty poor numbers. So I think Anderson is fine. Really, the only guy that's going to scare me too much is Corey Dickerson. But outside of that, I think Anderson should have a pretty solid game. Corbin Burnes at 8,400. He has been flawless this season, like absolutely flawless. Just looking at his numbers, 38% K rate, a 1.77 ERA paired with a 2.89 xFIP, which is still very good. 0.16 home runs per 9 innings given up, and only a 29% hard contact rate. If I pull up his game log for you guys, I'll just read off some of these numbers he's had. He's been awesome. 35, 23, 41, 28, 35, and then a run of some middling games. But ever since August 28th, this guy's been on absolute fire. We saw his pitch count the past 2 starts over 100, and he's racked up double-digit strikeouts in 3 of his last 5 starts. So Corbin Burnes, I know he doesn't feel like your prototypical like ace pitcher, but he's been pitching like one. And I don't love this matchup versus St. Louis, but the way he's been pitching, I'm going to give him the advantage here if you're looking at the Cardinals splits versus righties this season. Only 21% K rate, 100 WRC plus, 317 WOBA, and overall some pretty strong numbers. But Corbin Burnes has just been pitching so well, so I actually like him quite a bit here. I'm not sure if I'd really go with him or Anderson yet. It's still 12 a.m. the day prior, so I haven't made any definitive decisions. But I definitely like both these guys in the 8K range. You can make a case for both, and you can also play both too. You're not restricted to just one of these guys. But if I had to pick, I think it's kind of tough to pick one right now, but Corbin Burnes has been on excellent form. He's got a higher strikeout rate right now, so maybe I'd side with him, but I would also say the matchup's a little bit worse with Corbin as well. So quite a few factors we'll have to dig into, but a lower team total for the Cardinals and the same strikeout upside according to Vegas. Then Christian Javier here at 7,400, probably going to be a pretty popular SP2. I mean, you could make him your SP1 and go with Bubic at SP2, but I don't really love that strategy. I'd probably want to at least play someone like Ian Anderson or Corbin Burnes with Christian Javier here, but Definitely like him here versus Texas. I pretty much like each and every single pitcher versus Texas every single night. They've just been a very struggling offense this season. If you're looking at their splits versus righties, not striking out a whole bunch, but only a 202 batting average, a 61 WRC plus, and a 275 WOBA. Just very poor numbers all around. And Christian Javier is really not that bad of a pitcher. Pulling up his game log the past few starts, he's got 14, 13, 9, which isn't great, but then 20 versus Texas, 17, 6, 25. Pretty much been solid for the most part this season. And I think he should be able to get us around 15 points, if not a little bit more here versus Texas tonight. So Javier is a very solid, safe SP2 in my opinion. Then more of a tournament play here in Bubic. I got to learn how to say this guy's last name. I've just really never heard him say his name on TV, so I apologize. I'm going to assume it's Bubic. I don't think it's Bubic. I don't think it's Bubic either, because I feel like it would have an accent at the end. Or not an accent, but whatever it's called. Or I guess that would be an accent. But anyway, I'm going to say it's Bubic here. He's not been terrible this year. I'm going to pull up his game log, but on the overall stats, he's got a 4.49 xFIP and a 22% K rate. That's not great, but Detroit doesn't scare me too much. Now, I prefer righties versus Detroit, but his last 4 starts have actually been pretty good. 19 points, 16, 20, and 23. You can also see his pitch count over 100 pitches in 3 out of his last 4 starts. The strikeouts have been decent as well. And he has not made a start versus Detroit this season, so we don't have any BVP data if you guys like that. So unfortunately, we don't have any of that. But I think he'll be okay here. I think he's probably going to get you above 10 points, above 12 points in the 6,600. He'll allow you to fit in some more expensive bats. Now, I really don't think there's many bats that are super expensive on the slate that I feel like you absolutely have to play. Although there's a couple, like Rafael Devers, which I'll talk about. I think I'm going to make him the thumbnail of this video because he's in a really good spot here. But I think he's fine if you need some salary relief, and definitely a viable SP2 on this slate. But in cash games, I feel like you're going to want either Ian Anderson, Corbin Burns, and then paired with probably Christian Javier. But as of, it's 12 a.m., so things can change. But as of right now, it's kind of what my feel is on the slate. Then we'll move on to the bats now at this point. We got Salvador Perez at 5,300 going against Tyler Alexander. Now, Michael Fulmer is going to be listed as the starter here, but he is only a longer opener. We typically see him go about 2 to 3 innings. I was looking at his game log, and he has not surpassed 3 innings yet this season. He's been maxed out 3 or sometimes in the middle of 2 innings. So we won't see probably more than 3 innings from Michael Fulmer, maybe even less if the Royals happen to get to him quick. But they're going to bring in a lefty in here, and Tyler Alexander is the long relief option, which means we can certainly use some righties versus him. Now, I did not list the entire Royals lineup, but I do think they're a pretty decent stack on this slate, and Vegas would agree. They have a 5.18 implied team total today, and Salvador Perez has been swinging a pretty hot bat over the past month. So I think he's a fine option, but I will say I don't love paying $5,300 for Salvador Perez. They priced him all the way up, and I can't see myself getting there in cash games because that's just a ridiculous price tag. But if the lineup and the salary allows it, I don't mind playing Salvador Perez, but I have a hard time seeing him be able to fit too easily into my lineup. He's definitely not a priority, but he's still a fine option. Will Smith at 5,000. He's been great versus righties this season, and he was great versus them last year. And the Dodgers currently have the highest team total on the slate, and all the totals are out. And I'm not sure if I maybe missed the team on here, but I would assume that the Dodgers are the highest team total. I can double check that really quick. Okay, double checked, and they do at 5.26, so obviously we have some interest in the Dodgers. Only issue with playing these guys is that they're always super expensive, so it's not easy to fit in your lineup, but obviously they got plenty of upside, one of the best offenses in the league, and Will Smith's been great versus right-handed pitching. Mike Fiers is the guy that's going to throw a lot of strikes and doesn't have a high strikeout rate, only 9% to righties and 16% to lefties. Also been a little bit worse versus righties as well, which he has shown some reverse splits tendencies over the years, so definitely like righties here. You can also use lefties as well. But Will Smith, he's a reverse splits righty going up against a reverse splits righty, so I think this is a pretty good matchup for him. Pedro Severino at 3,400. Smaller sample size, but he's been hitting lefties pretty well this season with that 350 ISO, 418 WOBA, and just overall some very strong numbers. This is a pretty good game for offense, too. Boston's got a team total above 5, and the Orioles are at 4.37, but I actually think it should be a little bit higher. I think the Orioles are probably one of the better stacks on the slate here going against Martin Perez. Maybe not the worst pitcher in the world, but Boston pitching just in general pretty much sucks for the most part. So I think you can definitely stack this game up on both sides. I prefer the Red Sox side, but you can use the Orioles as well. Then dropping into first base, we have Freddie Freeman at 5,500. He's been hitting the ball really well going up against a righty here. Pablo Lopez is the guy that's going to struggle with lefties more so than righties. Also lower strikeout rate, and Freddie Freeman just has elite numbers versus right-handed pitching. So you guys can read the numbers yourself. I don't have to read them all off, but he's been very, very good versus righties. Hunter Dozier. So he's quietly crushing lefties so far this season against a smaller sample size, but 333 ISO, 419 WRC plus, 778 batting average, 1,011 slugging. Again, pretty small sample size here for Hunter Dozier, but I mean, the guy's been phenomenal versus lefties so far, and I do like the Royals stack on this slate. One of the higher team totals right behind the LA Dodgers. Then Bobby Dobik, 3,800. He's a guy that's also been swinging a hot bat the past few weeks, and he actually has shown quite a bit of power versus lefties and righties this season. And versus righties, small sample size, but an 826 slugging, over a 300 batting average, and a 522 ISO. And I do like the Red Sox on the slate, one of my favorite stacks. And Alex Cobb is no stranger to giving up some hard hit balls, so definitely we can stack up the Red Sox, and definitely a team I want to target on this slate. Then Miguel Cabrera at 2,800. He's just a little bit too cheap here going up against a lefty. He's showing some really strong numbers versus lefties. Not too much in the power department, but a 424 WOBA, a 355 batting average, 516 slugging, and overall just some very strong numbers, especially for only be 2,800. So he's going to grade out as a pretty strong value play on this slate. Going down to second base, it's a pretty weak position today, but Hanser Alberto at 3,700 is probably by far my favorite option just for the price, because he's been pretty good versus lefties the past couple of seasons. Not a ton of power, but a near 200 ISO is not bad. A 445 WOBA, 185 WRC plus, and a 429 batting average, which isn't as dark green as it should be because Hunter Dozier's smaller sample size is just by far just crushing that. But still, 429 batting average is obviously very elite. And last year he was really good versus lefties as well. So Martin Perez, we can certainly use some righties against him, and Alberto is a fine option there. Then Nico Goodrum at 3,300 also has better splits versus lefties, and he's actually doing very well versus them this season, striking out quite a bit, but a 308 batting average, 692 slugging, and a 385 ISO, so Goodrum is fine. That's really all I like at second base as well, and he's also eligible at shortstop if you want a cheaper option. I have 3 expensive guys listed at shortstop today, but if you want a cheaper option, Nico Goodrum is only 3,300. Then dropping down to third base, one of my favorite plays on the entire slate, Rafael Devers at 5,500. I feel like he's going to end up being a core play for me. I like a lot of value at other positions, but I'm going to have to spend up somewhere, and Rafael Devers is my favorite option here. I like the Red Sox quite a bit on this slate, and lefties can hit Alex Cobb hard, and Devers is crushing righties once again this season. He did last year, and he's doing it once again with a 333 ISO, near 400 WOBA overall, some very strong numbers. So love Rafael Devers, like the Red Sox as a whole. Max Muncy, just a Dodger bat versus Mike Fiers. I mean, all the Dodgers are pretty much good bats for the most part, and Max Muncy's got power to either side. On either side of the plate, either handedness. And then Maikel Franco at 4,100. Again, keep in mind that they're going to bring a lefty in as their long relief, as what it is projected right now. Again, it could change by tomorrow, but as of right now, it's supposed to be Tyler Alexander, the lefty. And Franco's got some good splits versus lefties this season, including a near 400 batting average. So don't mind Franco and Royal stacks. Now for shortstop, I got 3 expensive options here. If you're stacking up the Dodgers, you use Corey Seager. If you're stacking up the Red Sox, you use Xander Bogaerts, and if you're stacking up the Royals, you use Adalberto Mondesi. It's as simple as that. And if they do happen to bring in the lefty in, Tyler Alexander, which is what it's projected to be right now, Mondesi's been doing very well versus lefties this season with a 303 ISO, 576 slugging, strikes out quite a bit, doesn't get any walks, but I mean, the numbers have been strong. It's just he is super expensive. I don't know if you guys remember just a couple of weeks ago, this guy was like nearly $2,000 some dollars. So his price has risen, but he has been swinging a hot bat. But again, it's simple. Stacking Dodgers, Seager, Red Sox, Bogaerts, Royals, Mondesi. And if you just want to go cheap, you have Nico Goodrum, who's also eligible at shortstop as well. But love Corey Seager. I mean, he's just been so good versus righties this season. Like, looking at his splits, one of the best bats in the league versus righties this year. 340 batting average, 349 ISO, 440 WOBA, just overall very strong numbers. And then also another cheap option that I forgot because I didn't realize. I forgot he snuck in there at shortstop. I thought I only had 3 guys listed here. But Pat Valleky at 2,600. He's fine too. Smaller sample size, but versus lefties, a 429 ISO this season. A high fly ball rate, 714 slugging, and a 286 batting average. That's not too bad, and I certainly think you can stack up the O's today. So I don't mind Valleky at that cheap price point. And he kind of just snuck in there. I forgot I had him listed. Just snuck in there at the end. So that's another value shortstop if you want him. He's also eligible at first base as well. Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, just super expensive Dodgers bats, which if you have the money for them, they're good plays. If not, whatever. I don't think they're absolute must. But Mike Fiers does struggle a bit more with righties, and Mookie Betts has sucked versus lefties this season, but he has crushed right-handed pitching. I mean, looking at the numbers, dark green bars all around, near 500 WOBA, near 200 WRC plus, and just overall fantastic numbers. So both are good plays here. I prefer Mookie over Bellinger just head-to-head, but both are fine options. But Merrifield should see a lefty here in Tyler Alexander, and I do like the row stack on this slate. It's good versus either side. I keep wanting to say either side of the plate when it comes to the pitchers. Either handedness, lefties, or righties. But better versus lefties, though, and only a 5% strikeout rate to left-handed pitching this season. So we know contact's going to be made. He's near a 300 batting average hitter and near 200 ISO versus lefties. So I think Witt's fine. JD Martinez, prefer him versus lefties, and he's not hitting lefties as well as he was last season. But still, JD Martinez is one of the best bats on the entire Red Sox lineup. And I was going to say one of the best bats in the league, but it really hasn't been the case this season. Although over the past few years, he's been one of the elite bats. But I like the price tag of $4,300. And again, you can certainly stack up all the Red Sox here. Alex Verdugo, just lefty here versus Alex Cobb, and going to be leading off. His splits versus righties this season have actually been pretty strong. 250 ISO with 310 batting average, 144 WRC plus, near 400 wobbing. Near 400 woba. This is what happens when you make a video at 1 a.m., guys. I'm tired. I'm just slurring my words up. Ryan Mountcastle here at 3,900. Smaller sample size for him, but he's been doing well versus lefties in terms of batting average with a 333 batting average, only a 7% strikeout rate. The power really hasn't been there, but we know the guy's got power upside. I do like the Orioles stack on this slate. Jorge Soler at 3,100, again, just continues to be too cheap. Going against the lefty here in Tyler Alexander and a righty in Michael Fulmer. The past couple of years, he's had more power versus righties and actually better numbers overall. But he's fine versus either handedness here, and he's just a little bit too cheap. And I do like that row stack. 3,100 for the cleanup hitter with the team total above 5. You can sign me up for that. Then Austin Hayes, 2,500, just a cheap Baltimore Orioles bat. Then Avisail Garcia at 2,400, going against a lefty. He has shown elite numbers versus lefties this season, especially given his price tag. But just pulling up his splits quick, he's got a 230 ISO to lefties, a 511 on base percentage, a 371 batting average, a 22% walk rate, a 600 slugging. So Avisail Garcia at 2,400, I think is a pretty good value play. Now Kim's a pretty good pitcher, and they only have a 3.93 implied team total, but still he's dirt cheap, and he's been hitting lefties very well this season. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope it was helpful. If it was, make sure you leave a like. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and you can follow me on social media. And if you want to support my content over on Patreon, feel free to do that. You can check out my NASCAR video that I'll be posting tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening. And then I have my NFL First Look video out, my Thursday Night Football video out, and then I think that's about it. So I'll see you guys in the next video, and I'm going to go to bed because, as you can tell, I'm probably pretty tired. I probably sounded awful in this video, so I do apologize if I did.